Countdown to Eternity starts now.
Well, hello, my dear brothers and sisters. I want to welcome you to another episode of Countdown to Eternity. I am with my very, very dear friend and brother, Pastor Tom Hughes, and we've got a lot to go over. Tommy, what's the latest and greatest, bro?
What's happening, man? There's so much.
What isn't happening?
There's so much I want to say, but we just can't say. We can't say online. We can't say it publicly. So we'll say.
Wait, hold on. Wait. I'm gonna get it ready for you. Okay, go ahead.
So,
he did not curse for the record, folks. I just did that for effect.
Oh man.
Okay, so with all that set aside, bro, light it up. What do we got going on?
Lawlessness is definitely abounding. We're going to get back to that in a few minutes, all right? Right now, let's start here. MBS. Mohammed bin Salman.
Oh, you're gonna light the match right away, aren't you? You're just gonna set the fire right now.
Let's take some gasoline and pour it on that. I'll light the match. You pour the gasoline on, and we'll watch this thing go. What do you say?
Oh my goodness, Prime Minister Mohammed. Okay, well, let's talk about this. The conversation's going to be Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia.
There's a lot we could talk about, bro. What are we talking about?
All right. So last week, news comes out. MBS says, "Hey, we're not going to be trading in petrodollars anymore." What I mean, so I talked about that on one of my prophecy updates. What I basically did is read information that's been reported, and this is what Saudi Arabia is saying. However, if Saudi Arabia, let me ask you this, James, if Saudi Arabia doesn't trade in the petrodollar, what's going to happen? It's not just, people are saying, okay, America's going to collapse. Well, yeah, but it's not only America that would collapse. So I heard something like 90% of the world's wealth is traded in petrodollars, right?
Yeah, that's a reasonable number. Go ahead.
Okay, let's say it's 80%, but I think it's 90. Let's say it's 80. Well, what would happen if Saudi Arabia did that, not just to America, but to Saudi Arabia, to China, to the world? We hear all these threats. This is what's going to happen, but I don't know, man. It seems like they'd be. I'll let you talk.
Yeah. So look, here's the problem. Okay. The first thing that you have to talk about is you have to talk about OPEC. Now, look, I understand what MBS is doing. One thing that you can make certain about MBS is that he is very, 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 very smart. Okay. This is not something that he's just throwing around flippantly. Make no mistake, he is undoubtedly not going to remove the US dollar as the petrodollar. First of all, he doesn't even have the authority to do that in and of itself. Of course, he is the most influential member of OPEC. It should be noted the fact that there are a lot of countries very specifically tied to OPEC that would have an interest in seeing the US dollar go away, but even in of itself can't let that happen. Like, for example, Qatar is a member of OPEC. They became a member of OPEC in 1961. Indonesia became a member of OPEC, I believe, in that same time. Libya, the UAE, a little bit later on, I think in the late 60s, is when they became a member. A matter of fact, I know the UAE became a member of OPEC during the 67 war, which is, there's some significance there. And then, of course, there are some African countries that are very, very significant in this, like Algeria, Nigeria. You got South American countries that are producing lots of oil that are a part of this, like Ecuador, Angola, Equatorial New Guinea, which, by the way, is interesting, or we would call it Equatorial Guinea, even the Congo. But here's the thing that's really interesting with all of these nations. All of these nations don't have the type of power of their fiat currency to be able to hold the type of stipulation that the US dollar actually does. So as much as they would want to get rid of the US dollar, make no mistake about this, MBS knows that he can't regulate the function of OPEC, which in essence, he's really going to be the powerhouse in this. He can't regulate the function of OPEC by doing something like that, which, by the way, they even understand this with BRICS. BRICS is sort of they work hand in hand with OPEC, whether or not anybody wants to see that or admit it. But the one thing that is really interesting is OPEC knows that the US dollar can't go away. MBS knows that the US dollar can't go away. But what Mohammed bin Salman is doing in this particular context and in this actual place is he's using this as a tool to be able to leverage the position that he's trying to take into eventually what will become the new G7. Okay. This is why he had a very important meeting with Japan, which, by the way, if you remember, that meeting kind of got canceled because his father was very sick, and they thought that this may have been one of those transitional moments where his father was going to end up dying, which he didn't. And that was very critical because that was a meeting that both nations worked very hard and very long to bring up, because remember, Japan is a very critical member of the G7 for a lot of reasons. And there is a lot of discussing going on with the way the economies are changing so rapidly, specifically with the internal GDP numbers, the differences that exist between the internal GDP numbers and the external. There's a lot of instability that's happening right now amongst some of those nations. And so MBS is looking for his opportunity, right? You look at the G20, he clearly wants to leave that position or upgrade his position from not just being a member of the G20. I think he stands like number 19 in that order, soon to be number 12, I believe, which is where they were about 20 years ago. And he's going for the gusto. He knows for a fact that the net worth of his nation, which would buy him into the G7, would drop considerably if the Forex collapsed, and the foreign exchange market would collapse if the petrodollar went bye-bye, because again, your basis for establishing the consistency in a specific currency that's tied to the US dollar would completely fall apart. So think about it like this, bro. Let me just give you an idea. If we look at the pound that is being spoken about all the time, or let's just talk about the euro. Let's just forget the pound that we understand and know in the UK. Let's just talk about the euro for just one example. Mm-hmm. The euro is going to collapse. It will fall substantially if the US dollar falls, because there are too many derivatives that the euro is built on that are literally created from what the US dollar is. So there are residuals that exist that are going to end up dying. And if that happens, it's bad. So think about it like this. When one goes down, they all go down. Now, the reason why a person like me and you would be interested in this is if the US dollar fails, and we know cash as a whole is going to end up failing, which is then brings us into the world of Revelation 13, which is where we know we've been going to anyway. Now, this wouldn't even be in China's advantage. Iran would not be advantaged with this. We know certainly nations like Qatar, heck, Hamas wouldn't even be advantaged by this, because so much of their value is based on the stance of the fiat that the US currency has. And so that in and of itself becomes the major variable that exists. So they can't afford any attenuation in the value of whatever currency they hold. Even the rise in the ruble is tied directly to how the US dollar is doing. So for Saudi Arabia to say they're going to remove the petrodollar, it's not as simple as them saying, well, you can now start buying oil from us using all kinds of dollars. The problem with them doing that is they have no way of being able to regulate oil price. So let's think about it like this, Tommy. If I go to somebody and I say, look, the only way you can buy my product is by giving me this item right here. And this item is valued at a certain level. And now all of a sudden overnight I say, and you've been doing that forever. Now all of a sudden overnight I say, now you can buy my product with 15 of these other items. But the range in value of those items is so substantially lower, and maybe in some cases substantially higher, that I have no way of equalizing what the existing value is, because by me saying all of you can trade with all of your currency, I just devalued the main currency that I was trading with, so I no longer have a standard to be able to understand who gets what and what it's worth. So think about it like this. If a barrel of oil costs $100, which is a pretty, crazy price, but if a barrel of crude costs $100, it's 100 American dollars. And now all of a sudden I say, okay, I'm OPEC and I'll take any currency. Okay. And let's just say right now and let's pretend that the euro is valued double the amount of the US dollar. Okay. So for the euro, it's going to cost me $50 for that barrel of oil. Okay. Let's just pretend or 50 euro for that oil. Okay. Well, the very moment I collapse the US dollar, I no longer have a foundation to establish what your currency is worth to me when you hand it to me, because I don't know what your currency is going to do. So the moment the US dollar collapses as a result of it no longer being a petrodollar, the 50 euro that you might give me might only actually be worth 20 cents. So there's no way of being able to understand whether that 50 euro needs to be 300 euro or 800 euro or 1,000 euro, or if it needs to stay at 50 euro or if it's going to be 20 euro. The problem is what you are looking for in exchange for your crude might be something that will destroy your economy because you don't have the ability to be able to create a control. So you don't know what the money is worth. So the idea here would be a great reset. That's exactly what would happen. You lose the value of the dollar goes bye-bye. You have to actually go cashless. And then you have to create some type of a social credit system that actually determines the value of that cash, because God knows a whole bunch of people are not going to be bartering during that time. So that's what we're going to. And so if it does happen, which MBS is way too stinking smart to do that, if it does happen, then that means they already have contingencies in place to create the social credit system that would be necessary to make that work and to be able to level off what they would consider to be something that's fiat. They would go into a digital world, and that digital world would greatly regulate how everything functions. That means if he's serious and he's really doing it, there's a whole lot of crap going on in the background that they're working on that's not going to be good. It's just not.
No, well, that's two excellent points. So basically, it comes down to this: MBS does this, the world's economy is going to collapse. Not just America,
100%.
not just Europe. China is going to be devastated. Russia will be
Yep.
devastated. It is across the board going to destroy everything. And as you mentioned, even Iran, even Hamas. So you look at
Yeah.
everything. Everything is going to be collapsing if that happens. All right.
Yeah, think about it like this, Tommy. I'll just give you one example of this with China being affected, okay? China has basically hundreds of millions and billions, as a matter of fact, trillions of dollars of the US debt is being held by China. China is the note holders for that debt, okay? So we've raised our debt ceiling. We're going to China. We're borrowing from China, okay? So think about it like this. If I'm China and I'm holding $2 trillion in US debt, and let's just say I've got a bunch of treasury notes or something like that. Let's just say I'm holding that much debt. Well, am I going to benefit or am I not going to benefit if the dollar collapses? And now the $1 trillion that I owe you is like 5 yuan. I mean, think about it. Like if the dollar collapses, they collapse because they don't get back their investment.
Yeah.
So it's not in their interest to let that happen.
No.
Sorry, I had to disrupt you because I just wanted to make sure everybody understood what's at stake here.
Yeah, there's just no way. And China's already got themselves into some huge financial problems.
Oh, yeah.
That
Oh, yeah.
people are not paying any attention to, which you and I talked about 3 years ago. That,
100%.
That they're in trouble. And everybody said, you guys are crazy. They're going to be the 200 million man army. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Now more and more people are starting to realize we were right. But
oh, goodness
so
gracious, Tommy.
So, yeah. All right. So with that, here's what else you said, which is really interesting. I hadn't thought through this part yet. If Saudi Arabia is actually going to do this, which I don't think they are, I agree with you, that means something else has to be taking place behind the scenes that we are not privy to, which is much worse, which you bring in digital talk. Okay, so
Yeah.
I don't think that's happening from Saudi's perspective, but I do know that they're already implementing digital ID in Australia.
Yep, that's a
And
big deal.
we are now starting to hear, guess what? They're getting ready to implement digital ID here in the States for people
Yep.
who are receiving like Social Security, this type of thing, any kind of benefit from the government. This is just the first step. So what's happening in Australia will eventually be here for everybody, but they are taking the first steps to go digital here in America. If somebody, whether it be MBS or somebody else, somebody's going to end up at the top of this whole digital system. Somebody has to.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually Canada's beginning to do it. And here's the thing that's really interesting. You've got Australia, you've got Canada, you've got the United States. You know what they all have in common? one of the major things that they have in common, besides their embrace of wickedness and ungodliness, thus bringing in that whole woke industrial complex and, of course, the military industrial complex, the one thing that they have in common more than anything is they have economies that are on the verge of collapse. So what they're in essence doing is they're seeking to hedge the position of the result, and I'll use a very, very old school term, of the quantitative easing that they've been doing, right? The United States is the worst at it, right? Now, we're the ones that have the greatest reputation, or the biggest reputation for just printing so much money, it's not even funny, right? It's so bad that if you had $100,000 in the bank at the time that Trump left office, that $100,000 now today has the buying power of about $60,000.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a huge difference. If people
Yeah.
could wrap their heads around that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
mean,
think
look-
about it. You could.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I said just all the person has to do is just look how much a new car cost, say 2019.
Oh,
Same
yeah.
vehicle. Right now, it makes no sense except for what you're saying.
Yep. 100%. And that's where we're going. And we're going into a world of collapsing economy. And this sounds really bad, but the ones that are going to win here are the ones that have taken on debt that actually match the net worth that they have. So think about it like this. If you own a home right now and that home is worth $100,000 and you took a loan for $100,000, you have $100,000 in the bank. Who cares if you have $100,000 in the bank? That home will keep up with the inflation, and that home will end up being worth one day, in 20 years, that home will be worth $4 million. Well, guess what? You still owe $100,000 on the home. $100,000 will be something you can make at McDonald's after working for 2 days if you live in California, right? So what does that mean?
I've got the job at McDonald's. That's what it means.
Yeah, right. Exactly, bro. It's so crazy. Don't even get me started on the Gavin Newsom nonsense. But yeah, we are on the verge of incredible collapse, and it's not going to be pretty when it happens.
I want to ask you about two more things, or we'll talk about two more things.
Okay.
There's major civil unrest developing in France. We have these Russian boats off of China. Got to ask you. I want to go. Off of Cuba. Excuse me.
Yep.
But Gavin Newsom. He's the next president of the United States.
Probably.
That's what I
God, I hope. I'm telling you, bro. I hope not.
No,
I hope not. But I have a feeling it'll be Gavin Newsom with Big Mike. I'm almost certain. Almost certain.
Mike. Well, yeah.
Michelle Obama.
I see it coming.
Yep.
Much to Hillary's chagrin, she'll never be anywhere.
Let me just say this, bro. There's no way on God's green earth, that Joe Biden survives another term. He won't even live another term. Yeah. Well, and I can tell you this right now, and not that I would wish for him to die, honestly. Like I have no desire to see anything like that happen, but his health is so bad, right? His health is so terrible. And even the Democrats don't want Mrs. Crazy Nut to actually be the president, right? No, I mean, she's the worst part about her is she's not only incompetent, and not only does her IQ match potentially my shoe size, but the other problem with that is the fact that she would genuinely try to take some crazy bull by the horn and run it herself. And she would actually drive the country further in the ground than Biden, even as hard as that is to imagine. I mean, I can't even imagine it. And even the Democrats know this. They don't want her. They want nothing to do with her. Well, if they want to put, say again.
No, the handlers know that they can't control her because in the middle of the night she could just do some crazy thing.
Isn't she married, by the way, to a Jewish man?
Yes, she is. Yeah.
So she's married to a Jewish man, and she's so blatantly anti-Semitic. Like, isn't that kind of crazy?
Well, I'll tell you what's weird is there's Jews that are anti-Semitic. Go figure that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I know. We see that, bro, all the time. Like, it's just, I can't, like, that's something I still can't get past. I don't understand it, bro. I don't understand it.
So you think,
I do think we're talking Gavin Newsom.
You think we're going to get,
we'll find out at the Democratic National Convention. That's when we'll find out.
That's a show in and of itself.
Bro.
Can you imagine the drag queen?
I'm popping the popcorn. Bro, I'm telling you this right now. They are going to put diapers on Joe Biden and inject him full of all kinds of meth or something like that. That's what's going to happen.
He's probably going to drop right on national TV. You know, I tell you, everybody's going to have to record that because they're going to be pulling pieces and saying, this isn't true. This is fake news. This never happened. So you're going to have to hold on to the scenes because It's going to be it's going to be a wild popcorn show. And
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, I look, if we get to elections, if we get to them, I
Yep.
think Newsom's going to be it, which is horrible for the whole country.
Yep.
I mean, you think it's gone bad. Now we have Joe Biden accept with intention.
Well, here's the other thing. And look, the nation is so sick and tired of the nonsense that they've seen that we may very well have enough people voting for Trump, and it won't be a pro-Trump vote. It'll be an anti-Biden vote on a lot of levels, right? But we may have enough people voting for Trump where they can't get away with you know what I mean. I have to be careful how I say this because we're on YouTube. But here's the thing that people don't realize: even Trump coming into office isn't going to fix America.
Yeah.
The problem is what got America in trouble has nothing to do with Trump leaving office or not leaving office. It has nothing to do with COVID. What got America in trouble is America's insatiable appetite and lust for sin. And that's what got us in trouble. So when you embrace sin, you walk away from sobriety.
Yep.
Look, I talk to people all the time. It's like you say, well, you're not sober. That has nothing to do with drinking alcohol.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who drink alcohol. They get, sauced up and they're completely not sober. But that's not what not sober means in my mind. In the biblical definition, not sober is you're so given to sin that you don't have clarity of mind. You don't have clarity of thought.
Well, America has become so affluent and so dependent on, been won over by their luxuries and their sin.
Yep.
The perversions. I mean, look how perverted we are. I believe, James, that we've been given over, Romans chapter 1, to a reprobate mind.
I agree.
We've crossed the Rubicon. How to get it back? There's absolutely no way we're ever going to get back apart from national repentance. I don't see that ever happening.
Maybe some Jonah-style miracle. I don't know.
That's what it would take. It would take a Jonah-style miracle, and I just don't see it happen. I also don't see when I read my Bible and realize what this world's going to look like up into the rapture. It doesn't give the picture of a church that is on fire for the Lord. It gives exactly the opposite.
That's right.
The church is given over to doctrines of demons, deceiving spirits. The leaders are speaking lies and hypocrisy. What do you have? Their conscience is seared with a hot iron. On down this path. They have a form of godliness. They deny the power thereof. Lovers of themselves rather than the lovers of God. They're boasters, proud. Right on down this list. So that describes the church.
Yeah. And look, the characteristic of Babylon described to us, the city of Babylon, the picture is look at the religion that comes from it, right? It's a religion of fornication and adultery. It's indicative of a whole world that will pursue after the lust of their own flesh and deny the true and living God and view it as a religion. Look at it as a righteous thing. Look what's happening right now with all this whole month, this Pride Month. Bro, me and you just celebrated Father's Day yesterday. This is the day that we're recording this. It's the day after Father's Day. You guys will be hearing it a few days later. You'll be hearing this on Wednesday. But here's the thing that's really incredible to me. You have one day where you celebrate fathers. They're the ones that truly make a difference in this world. One day. Do you know how many days they're celebrating the LVB123 CIA Alphabet Mafia? 145 days, bro. 145 days. More than a third of the days in the year are celebrating sexual idolatry.
It's not just the month of June. It's all these different holidays that are out there.
All kinds of crazy days.
It's also interesting that it went from, it had different names, right? Then you bring in the rainbow, then you go gay pride, then they drop the gay and just went with pride. Listen, I think it's very indicative that God is ultimately sovereign. He's allowed man to make his choices, and pride comes before destruction. And guess where? I mean, it is like God is shouting at us just through the cultural things that are happening to wake up. And for people not to say something is wrong and think this is normal, yeah, that's perfectly normal that you have just a month, along with the other, 115 days that are given over to gay pride or transgender days. It's perfectly normal to have men in little girl sports. It is?
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, you look at this stuff and go, there's this growing sense with people as you read the polls, they're starting to receive these things as normal. Guess what? Satan has effectively normalized sin, and the people celebrate it. The whole month,
Yep.
people celebrate this.
Yep. Well, that's the thing that's just so so sad. Like for me, and I make myself very, very clear. Like over the last probably 10 years, I've stopped watching movies. I mean, every now and then I'll go to a movie theater, maybe, but I tell this to people all the time and they hate me when I say this to them. Like they get really mad at me. You know, I say the average person that I talk to can't afford to go to a movie. Like, what do you mean can't afford? I could go spend the $20 on a ticket. I said, that's exactly the point. You can't afford to go watch a movie because here's the thing. It's not about you paying the money to go watch somebody else live a life that's fake so that you can be numbed up over the life that you choose not to live, right? It's like when I say you can't afford to watch a movie, it means you're flat out broke because you're spiritually bankrupt, you're physically bankrupt, you're not taking care of yourself financially, you're not putting your life in order, but yet you'll spend 2 hours of your life every single or every other day or every single week to go watch fake people do fake things, tell you a fake story so that you can live in a fake way or imagine you're living in a fake way instead of taking that 2 hours a week or that $20 a week that you're spending and put it into something that will educate you, to cause you to grow and to become something that that God has called you to be. And I've always talked about this. It's like the people that actually sit in the stands and watch in the arena are people that God never intended to live that way. Like, I want to be in the arena. And that's the problem. It's like the mindset here is like, well, let's just go to the movies. I call them programming sessions. You know, public school is the same way. It's like you're going to be programmed. And I used to talk about this, 15, 20 years ago when they did that Titanic movie. 4 flipping hours, bro. 4 hours. They're glorifying these two people fornicating while the boat is sinking. It's like, that's like a picture of life without Christ.
Yeah, and you know what?
That doesn't make sense
We were much more tame back then. Look where we are now. Check this out. Here's this chapter by Bill Federer in one of his books.
I love Bill.
He's fantastic. One of his chapters is "Children Belong to the State," and then in this he says Plato wrote, "When the true philosopher kings are born in a state, they will set in order their own city. They will take possession of the children who will be unaffected by the habits of their parents. These will then train in their own habits and laws." This is exactly what's happening in our government schools. And Plato wrote this, 2,400 years ago?
Yep.
So this isn't
because
something new.
It's a play out of Satan's book.
It is. That's exactly what it is.
It's just crazy. That's why, by the way, I'm just telling you this right now. Over my big, fat, dead, brown Egyptian body will my children ever step foot into a public school.
Yeah.
It'll never happen.
Yeah. This is what,
it'll never happen.
Yeah. This is what troubles me when and I want to encourage any parent out there is right now, I look and go, if you are sending your kid to a public school, I understand the predicaments that people are in with 2 jobs and all that, but you have better be involved with that school and you better make your voice heard because there's such evil that is happening. And what's happened here in America, people, they send their kids to school so they can just do their own life. The school's become a babysitter. And guess what? What Plato warned is actually happening right now. It's happening to your kid.
It's a prison indoctrination camp.
That's what it is.
Exactly what it is.
Instead of being carried off to Babylon like the people of Judah were, like Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were carried off to Babylon, taught the Babylonian ways. No, we brought Babylon right to the schools, and we made parents busy so the parents will say, take care of my children. And, the state is taking care of your children.
It's out of the Assyrian playbook. It's exactly right. And it's what we're watching right now happening in the United States of America is what we saw with the Northern Kingdom of Israel. It's the same exact situation. And you know what's really interesting? You think about the Northern Kingdom of Israel. I think about the initial split between Rehoboam and Jeroboam. Rehoboam, of course, being the son of Solomon, Jeroboam being the person who led the revolt with the Northern Kingdom. The one thing Jeroboam recognized right away when the Northern Kingdom split from the Southern Kingdom was he knew he could not control the hearts of the people unless unless he could get them away from going to Jerusalem 3 times a year. Because what would happen was they would still make their pilgrimage to Jerusalem. They would worship the true and living God in the temple, and then they would come back and go, oh man, no, my heart is for Israel. And their patriotism would be reignited. They would be really excited about serving the Lord again. And it was a big problem for Jeroboam. So you know what Jeroboam did? Jeroboam set up all kinds of temples in the high places all throughout the north. But the key component, and this is the one that nobody focuses on, and this is why I'm so hard on pastors. The key component was Jeroboam hired priests. He hired the priests that were working in the southern kingdom in the temple, men that were familiar to the people of the northern kingdom. He hired them to build these temples, to work in these temples. So what he did was he went to the people and he said, oh no, you can worship God here. It's a lot more convenient. And by the way, it's lawful because the same priests you're familiar with are here running this. And that's exactly what happened. Let me tell you, this playbook, this game out of this playbook has existed for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Where we first saw it show its ugly face in the United States of America was Margaret Sanger with the Negro Project. When she started Planned Parenthood, she said it. She knew there's no way in the world I can get black people to kill their babies unless their pastors agree because their family structures are too strong. So what did she do? She got pastors to buy into that nonsense. And here we are 100 years later. Look at what's going on. 3% of the childbearing population in this country are black women, yet they account for 50% of the abortions. Why? Yeah. Because of pastors like Raphael Warnock who have bought into the Negro Project, who are now programming their minds. And that's what's happening on a larger scale. This isn't just a black problem. This is a problem within the body of Christ or people who purport to be a part of the body of Christ, where you have pastors who are literally buying the lie. The Benny Hinns of the world, the Joel Osteens of the world, and all these other people that are leading people in a dark, demonic direction that are completely taking away, including the woke industrial complex people of the world. We've talked about them. Even in Calvary Chapel, we've seen a few of these guys, right? We've watched the Brodersons of the world and that are just leading people completely astray. And that's exactly what's happening because they have bought into the lie of Jeroboam. Same thing.
Yep, that's so well said. I was going to ask you if we could do a segment on eugenics, because when we understand eugenics,
we should do that.
You can really understand why these things are happening from our experience in general over the last 4.5 years, where things are going, plus what's happened in the previous 200 years. And you will have an aha moment. You'll go, that's why. And then you start finding out Teddy Roosevelt was a eugenics guy, not just Margaret Sanger, George Bernard Shaw, Oliver Wendell Holmes. You go, there's a lot of them. And it's
the Carnegies were eugenicists.
Carnegies,
I mean, all these people.
Henry Ford. You start going down the list, you go, okay. It starts to make a whole lot of sense why there are people in power that are saying, well, we can't even say what they're saying because
that's
what's in play here. Hey, we're way out of time.
Oh my goodness, dude, I just saw the timer. Yeah, we are way over it. Okay, bro, I'll give you the last word. We're going to have to pray for our radio producer. He's going to have to cut the show down for the radio. God bless Matt. We love you, Matt. Okay, I'll give you the last word, bro.
Hey, it was just a great time today. I'm going to go with one more quote. Lord Acton wrote, that the time will come when official truth is not actual truth, referring to that's the spin that you're going to hear. Well, guess what? That is we are here. So we know that what the official truth we know is a lie. We know what the actual truth is. That's why we do this program.
It's so right, bro. Goodness gracious, that is so true. Oh, my goodness. All right. Well, thank you for that, bro. I don't have anything to add to that other than I just want to personally thank all of you guys that are watching us. You take us along in your jogs or your living rooms or when you're driving. Those of you listening to us on the radio or watching us online, we are so grateful that you take the time to listen. We love you. We're honored to minister to you. On behalf of Tom Hughes, this is James Kaddis. We want to thank you for joining us for another episode of Countdown to Eternity. We love you so much. Keep fighting the good fight. God bless you.